Welcome to Giants Nation. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, the Football Grump, and it's the first mailbag of the year. And I always say on these that, unfortunately, the Giants are 0-1 and bad. For the fortunate thing of that, though, is, I will say, the mailbags are just better after losses. There's more to dissect. It's not just vibes and all that stuff. It does make for better content, even though no one cares because the team is bad. But Grump, first mailbag of the season. Not feeling good about that game. It's still with me. It hasn't worn off like other losses have before, but we're here to dissect it, and then Friday we'll be back for a preview and giving them the path to victory.
Going on, Bobby? Yeah, game was terrible. A couple days have gone by, so I know you're digging through the all 22 and keeping the vibes nice and low for everybody. That's real cool of you. But yeah,
I watched the film, bro. Just gotta watch the film, bro.
Yeah, we're gonna get into this. So it's been a tough couple of days. And I'm hoping to turn the page after this mailbag. Look forward to Dallas after this episode.
Yeah, if beat Dallas and things change, at least for a week, things change, and that would be really nice for us. So before we get into this episode was brought to you by some special people. We got Quinn Dunham, not Durham, Dunham, Bobby Skinner's burner. I need to bring my burner back. Christopher DeLeo, not Galileo, DeLeo. David Nassarian. I think I got that right first try. So sorry about that, David. Ismo Latila. He is no Latina, but he is Ismo Latila. G Cuneo. He's very cunning. Nate Sims. He's actually related to Chris, but not Phil. Kyle Mergori. He has McDonald's. James Ciolino. How about I see you later? Luke Schaefer, who actually is related to Alan Schaefer, who found us south of the border. And then this one's a handful. Jason Januszewicz. It's spelled Januszziewicz. Janiswiz. I'm just going to go with Janiswiz. Grump, who are these special people with some hard last names?
These special people with some hard last names went to patreon.com/GiantsNation, where they signed up in one of the 2 tiers available to them so that they could watch episodes like this live as they're being recorded. They also get stickers from you, Bobby Skinner. They also get entered into a monthly t-shirt raffle. And now that the season is starting, they're going to get access to all 22 breakdowns that you are doing Patreon only. Is that correct?
That is correct. Week 1, I put it out publicly for a little taster. Like, hey, you got to join. You got to join. No mas. No mas. And the NFL is just demonetizing everything, which is used to not do that. But thank you to patreon.com/GiantsNation and all these special people. I'll be glad you did. Let's get into this mailbag. Take it away, Steve.
Mail time.
Mail time.
The mail's here. Come on. Bye, guys. Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
Thanks, Steve from Blues Clues. Grump, let's get into the mail.
First piece of mail, Bobby, is from @JOsborne21, and the question is this the worst coach game of Daboll's career?
So I actually sat and thought about this. I watched all the film, wrote down trends and stuff that I didn't like and things that I did like. But I didn't want to come on this in reactionary, and that's the title, like the worst coach game of Brian Daboll's career. And then in reality, I was like, no, these are 4 games. But I think it is, man. Like, there's been some games where I disagreed with the plan. Even in 2022, there was times where things that had been working had been caught on to, and they were late to adjust. But this on offense was simply the first time where I just felt it was a terribly called offense, and not just quarterback execution or even like the 40-0 loss to the Cowboys. I was listening to Just Giants podcast, and I was glad that you said it. Like, this is 40-0 to the Cowboys, because that was just an ass beating, a team that was defensively way more talented, and then CeeDee Lamb taking over a bad secondary and a bad pass rush. This felt just off, over 25% of the plays, Grump, were pre-designed one option plays. we've never seen that in a Brian Daboll offense. And then you go into the red zone specifically, where like play calling matters more than anything, and it's not just execution. Basically, that's all it was. Like they were, if it was regular reads, it was just like guys trying to box out defenders and not actually like put guys in conflict. Like 4 out of the 6 passing plays on that first red zone series were pre-designed throws. Um, Darius Slayton was like almost never asked to just win a route and get a target. Like you have a man coverage team and you never got guys in isolation versus man. Um, there was just huge offensive, like, mistakes of, like, guys running the wrong route or being in the wrong place, and I'm not just talking about, like, Russell Wilson making the wrong read or James Hudson being bad at stunts, even though you should be preparing for that a ton facing Dan Quinn. Like, I'm talking about guys being totally in the wrong place. On defense, it wasn't the worst defensive game plan, but it was because I never really loved Shane Bowen. It was just the same old Shane Bowen. I mean, they ran cover 1 and cover 3 75% of the time, Grump. The third most, coverage usage was cover 2 at 12.5%, and 60% of that was on the 2-minute drive at the end of the half. Like 8 passing plays where they didn't run cover 1 or cover 3, and half of those were in the 2-minute drill. Like they didn't blitz, they didn't get pressure. When they did blitz, they lost contain, or they did replacements where they were still only rushing 4. 6 of 7 second and 14s when converted, and scheme had very much a lot to do with that because they just sat back and were soft. And I'll give Bowen not benefit of the doubt, but like compared to other games where it's like I understand Jaden Daniels has you scared and you sit back on your heels and you don't want to get burned, but and at the end of the day, it did result in 21 points, and you say, well, Jaden Daniels was sloppy, but could be their plan, was like, hey, he's not going to be perfect. We can't get over aggressive and let them burn us. But I know it's long winded, but usually after a film watching, I'm like, all right, this is what the mistake was. This is why their plan wasn't working. Even like Vikings last year, I'm like, I understand this is exactly why they did this. It just didn't work out the way they wanted. It just felt like this was the worst I've ever seen a Brian Daboll offense be called, and Mike Kafka's the one actually calling the plays, but Daboll's obviously a huge influence on the game plan, and then the defense, it was just kinda same old stuff, but terrible execution.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult to say if it was the worst coached game of his career, but it's certainly an easy candidate, and, I think if you look at everything that they did, they didn't look prepared, and they looked too conservative in their game planning, especially on defense. I'll give Shane Bowen a slight benefit of the doubt, not only because Jaden Daniels is somebody who kind of makes you have to alter what you wanna do, but also losing Micah McFadden very early in the game can alter what you are able to accomplish. But just in general, everything that they did didn't make any sense. It didn't feel like at any point they put the players that they had in the best position to succeed. Darius Slayton was basically a decoy for like the entire game. That doesn't make any sense to me. He had 1 target in the entire game. They did exactly what I hoped they wouldn't do with Abdul Carter in terms of spying Jaden Daniels, where you could see that he's just kind of sitting back and watching Jaden Daniels. And to no one's surprise, it didn't work. Um, and I don't think that the team looked prepared in general. Like you said, like not being prepared for stunts on the offensive line, or maybe they tried and all of the players just didn't step up. Um, but again, like I think football is a complementary game. So even if this was the worst coached game of Daboll's career, the players didn't play well also. So I mean, there is blame to go all the way around. But to answer the question flatly, I think it might have been. Yeah.
It's not the Giants' worst game under Brian Daboll. Like, that's Cowboys 40-0 loss, and there's other ones in there. Um, but to me, it was just like, when you talk about, like, execution, like, that means, like, when, "Oh, we gotta execute better." That means, like, "Hey, you gotta hold your block a little better," or "Your technique on your punch was a little off." Like, Brian, like, they get a 2nd and long off a Brian Burns sack, and then they actually run a blitz, right? And then they run a stunt, and Brian Burns totally just gets, like, is supposed to be keeping the outside edge, and he just goes inside. And Jaden Daniels scrambles for a 3rd down conversion. Like, that's where the Bill Belichick, like, you're either coaching it or you're allowing it. That's the type of shit. I did on the film breakdown, and I did an individual video for socials on this. They run mesh on a 3rd and short. It should have been an easy pitch and catch, and Tyrone Tracy is either terrible design or running the wrong route and ruining the play.
Just bringing a defender right into where you're targeting.
Yeah, that is what I'm talking about. Like, either you're coaching it or you're allowing it. It's at the end of the day, like, I'm not being like, how did Darius Molisau get beat by Zach Ertz? Like, I'm not killing the coaching for that. It's just the discipline things were terrible, and then the offensive game plan. There's been times where I've come on after a game and talked about, like, why did you guys run the ball 35 times against the Texans when they were just selling out against the run the entire game? Or, you guys were teams have caught on to your play action and you got stuck on it and nobody was falling for it on 2nd long. This was just like, how many plays can there be one option on it? And not because guys aren't getting open, because that's how you're designing it, is to have one option on it. I was in shock at how often they were just running rub routes to one guy or, these pre-designed things. And again, Russ did not help. Russ had a bad game. The offensive line, like, I don't love Brian Daboll's the way he operates his run game and the lack of identity, and I think it matters in practice, but, like, the offensive line didn't allow you to have a good running game. Like, it wasn't the coach's faults that they couldn't have a good running game. It was, like, guys on the offensive line were just playing badly. They were blocking badly. That's not my issue with Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka. It was just like, what were you trying to accomplish on offense besides rub routes and slot fades to Malik Neighbors? Like, that's really, like we said on the preview pods, like, I think we're going to see a few slot fades. Well, we saw like 8, like they identified something that might work and it didn't, but they just like, this is what we're going to do. This is all we're going to do. And again, there's players have obviously a big part of this, but
ultimately, yeah, I just don't feel like they put their players in the best position to succeed. They were stubborn with their game plan. I don't think that I think you would even said this during the game, like maybe at like halftime. It's like they're calling a game as if Russell Wilson is not their quarterback.
Yeah, we said that after the game, where it's like, that's the one thing that they've been good at. It feels like they adjust to who their quarterback is pretty good, but it just, again, there has been a lot of times we come on a podcast and people are calling, oh, this offensive coordinator sucks, whatever, and we're like, no, this is where the issues are. Like, this isn't their fault. They adjusted. They have Tommy DeVito at quarterback. You can only do so much, or Drew Lock or whatever. This was just like, what? How was this your week 1 plan? And it was very, very odd to see that out of them. And I hope they turn it around. I hope at least offensively. I don't think they're the biggest morons in the world offensively, schematically. The way they address details and stuff, I think they're bad. Like, that's where I'm like, where Brian Daboll, where I kind of last year with him, where I'm like, I think offensively he's not a bad mind, but I think he lacks details. I think he has a culture of letting shit slide in practice. They don't address mistakes. They don't, if they are running rub routes, they don't perfect them. But I think he could put together a decent playbook, or play call sheet. So, like, I think they could turn around some, and I think things would open up a little bit with Jackson Dart, because the middle of the field is just not open with Russell Wilson. Defensively is where it's like, dude, what did you draft Tyler Nubin for and sign Javon Holland if you're just going to have one? Essentially, every single play is, all right, one of you is going to play man coverage on the tight end, one of you is going to play center field. Right? Like, you get these safeties who are supposed to be high IQ players, and you just got one playing man coverage and one playing middle field safety. Like, that is the most basic things you can ask out of your safeties. The lack of blitzing, or when they did blitz, not, actually sending it and dropping guys back, dropping Brian Burns in coverage and leaving the right side open with no contain. Like, I don't have any faith of Shane Bowen to turn it around. Defensively, it's just Dex will have dominant games, and I think this edge group will win against not Jaden Daniels more often, and will have good defensive games. Shane Bowen, schematically, I'll never be in. I don't think Brian Daboll even is on. Like, he wasn't his first choice, and I think the only reason they didn't fire him was because of optics and the fact that they didn't believe they could get the guy and whoever they wanted in there after firing 2 DCs in a row.
You had mentioned the middle of the field not being open. with Russell Wilson. And that brings us to our second mailbag question from @CrypticAlfred. You mentioned many times that Russell Wilson can't read the middle of the field, but do you think he could read an ad?
Do you think he could read an ad? That's a great question. I bet you he could. I think he'd be one of the best. But I am still excited to go see the Giants eventually. It'd be good to be there at an event. And that's why I've been looking at tickets on SeatGeek, which is why today's sponsor is SeatGeek. And I want to just give them a huge shout out. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and you guessed it, more. Love more. The NFL season is around the corner. MLB is in full swing, and even the NHL and NBA are not far behind. I love using SeatGeek. I use our code Giants, or not Giants. Ooh, I almost used my old code. Using Bobby 2025 to go to the Darlington race. And SeatGeek has your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. So look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And of course, I have a code for you guys. You can use code Bobby2025 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code Bobby2025. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek. You'll be glad you did. And again, you don't need to buy tickets to add the promo code. So add the freaking promo code right freaking now.
Add it right now. You'll be glad you did. Next question comes from Nick Eliadis @knee230. How can we be in year 4 of this regime and the O-line is still this pitiful? Are they too prideful to move on from their draft picks, or is it a failure to actually draft guys? I think this is a really, really loaded, detailed question.
It's both. I mean, the easiest answer is like they have just been bad at the guys that they have picked. And that would go like where process, they were right at their first year. They went and signed Mark Lewinsky with the cap space they had. He got the biggest contract they could give that year. That ended up being a failure, right? We didn't have big expectations for him. He was a complete failure. Was benched in year 2. John Feliciano was solid, but also they let him walk for a $2.2 million contract with no centers on the roster next year. And then you take Evan Neal pick 7, bust. Josh Azuda pick 67, bust. Marcus McKeithen was a 5th-round pick. Didn't pan out, but you're not going to kill him for that. And then that's where I'm like, I just don't love the way they attacked it, where I said on the show on Monday or Sunday night, like, they just look to plug holes. You take 2023, they draft John Michael Schmitz at pick 57. He's been a bad pick, and he was the most disappointing player outside maybe Russ was like JMS, man, year 3, and it looks like you're almost taking steps backwards. And that was it. Like, that was really the only additions they added to the offensive line that year. And the fact is when they were on the clock for JMS, they didn't have a center on the roster. You had Josh Azuda at swing tackle. You started Marcus McKeithen over Mark Lewinsky, who was like maybe the worst offensive lineman I've seen them play since covering this team. And then 2024, like, oh, we got to fix the offensive line. So what did they do? They signed John Runyon, who's average at best. Then signed Jermaine Illimore, who was a great signing, but we're trying to play him at guard, which was always really, really stupid. Like, I want that on the record, how stupid it was that was their plan. And then they signed Greg Van Roten in camp, not when they realized that the plan was stupid, but just because Evan Neal wasn't ready and injured for training camp. And then this past year, they re-signed Greg Van Roten. They signed James Hudson as to a 2-year, $12 million deal. Well, you guys know how much I want to address swing tackle. I was like, this guy's a bottom 10 tackle in the NFL. Then they drafted Marcus Bowe in the 5th round. So like, since year 1, they've added no long-term pieces. Like, they've only drafted 2 offensive linemen, JMS and then Marcus Bowe in the 5th round. Their most expensive addition based off of annual salary is John Runyon with the 61st. Like, he's the 61st highest paid offensive lineman in the NFL on an annual basis. It's really being held together by Dave Gettleman's draft pick and Andrew Thomas. Like, outside of 2022, Grump, they really haven't been proactive about actually making their offensive linemen good. I'm not talking about just like plugging holes, but good. The only investment that is really like, this is how we're going to improve the offensive line is JMS in the 2nd round after, again, not having an actual center on the roster. So they had to draft a center that year. And then, running his contract in a year where guards were getting 20+ million was clear what that was. And then Jermaine Illuminor is the best result they've had. But they literally didn't even view him as an offensive tackle, and they paid him, $3 million less than what John Runyon got. So, like, I will not give the offensive line credit with this. Well, actually, no, you go. And then I want to talk about, like, the rest of the season at offensive line, because I don't think it's as dire as people are making it sound right this second.
I think that this is a good.
I was going to say, I don't think it's as dire as people are making it sound, but also, like, it's not going to be an advantage either.
Yeah, so I think that this is a collection of errors with blame to be spread around from the front office down to the coaching staff. And I think that this is too narrow of a view to say, like, oh, is it because of the draft, or, is it because of the draft? Like, it's far more than just the draft. I think that there's a collection of errors here, and there's some things that people are forgetting. These are going to sound like excuses. I'm not making excuses for these guys. I'm just pointing out what I see. So, number one is you have a first-year GM. This is the first time he's ever been a general manager before, and I think that he made mistakes throughout the process in this 4-year, process of building the offensive line. In year one, he was battling some internal politics, I think, with the Giants, and he had a difficult draft. It's difficult to navigate a draft that way.
I hate that excuse, though.
It's not an excuse. It's just the facts. That is a thing that happened. That's all I'm saying.
But here's the facts: is he didn't need a scouting department to draft Evan Neal. Like, that is all. Like,
Okay.
top 10 picks are all in the GM.
But
And
who out there said Evan Neal was going to be like that was not something that was out there from any analyst, scout, anywhere. That pick was not highly criticized. No one saw what happened to Evan Neal. I'm not going to give Joe Schoen a pass for that, but at least like 50% of Evan Neal's failure to develop is because of Evan Neal.
No, well, you go back and you like, why'd I ignore the negatives on stuff like that? So, like, I'm not even, like, criticizing, like, what an idiot, because, his two, like I said, biggest investments, I think, are Neal and JMS, and those are two moves I was in favor for. And so, like, it's the way he's addressed it, but I don't like the scouting thing for that. And even Josh Azudu, like, the whole thing was like, oh, Bobby Johnson worked a lot with those guys. I have the top 100 already scouted. Like, I think on day 3, that can be a little more of a conversation, even though day 3 was probably the best day of that draft class. I just don't give that for Josh Azudu and Evan Neal.
Well, I think he just didn't trust his scouting department. So whether or not, like, it's an excuse or not, I think it was just something that he was internally battling with. I don't think he trusted the people around him, didn't know where leaks were coming from. Whatever. This is only a microcosm of what I'm trying to say here. But in that first year, I do think that there was a priority placed on the offensive line. And this is something you already said, but Evan Neal, Josh Azudu, Marcus McKeithen, John Feliciano, Mark Lewinsky. I think that the combination of things that went wrong here is, number one, they got either the wrong guys or guys failed to develop. And that's, Evan Neal, Mark Lewinsky, that's getting the wrong guys, or the Evan Neal failing to develop. John Michael Schmitz, I don't think was the wrong guy, but it definitely is somebody that didn't develop. I certainly didn't see JMS being a below average to just straight up bad center in the second round. I think another thing is failure to put guys in their best spots to succeed. For instance, Josh Azudu, I don't think is a tackle, and I don't think ever should have been a tackle. I think at guard is probably someone that's functional. And I don't, and that's not really Joe Schoen's fault. That's probably Brian Daboll's fault. I think that the biggest thing that stunted the O-line from being grown is succeeding in 2022, and both Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll buying into their own hype and just moving forward to try and make, get better now moves rather than continue to build moves. In 2023, only getting JMS with nobody on the roster to play center, there's a chance that in the second round, JMS wasn't going to be there.
Yeah, Bears traded up. They thought that he was going like, why didn't they bring back John Feliciano for 1 year, $3 million? Like, like, again, I don't think they ever. It's like, if you want to give excuse, like, say that for stuff for the first year, whatever, like, it happens. Like, you're gonna miss on prospects. Not everyone, GMs miss on prospects, even top ones. But my issue more so is not 2022 is like the best way they actually address the offensive line. They just had failure of results. It's the last 3 years where it's like you've drafted 2 offensive linemen in 3 years, and one's a 5th round pick. You know, like as much as we can be excited for Marcus Bowe, like you've drafted 2 and one was a 5th round pick. And then your free agent additions, like I said, the most expensive free agent you've added in 3 years is $10 million per year in John Runyon. You knew exactly what he was. Like we're not his level of play is not surprising to anybody.
No, and I get all that, but I would say that the biggest because now when you make that mistake, then now you're playing catch up. So you're almost forced to be reactive than proactive. You don't get a chance to be proactive when you're already a step behind. So again, this isn't an excuse. It's just the facts. It's just reality. When you buy into your own hype and you just completely ignore the position group for a year, and on top of that, some of those guys don't develop. Now it's not just like, oh shit, we don't have any depth. It's like, oh shit, we don't have any depth. And the guys we projected to be starters are probably not even good depth, or at best their depth. Now you're just way behind. There's no way to be proactive anymore. And that, again, that's not an excuse. This is their fault. And again, the players got to play too. So whatever. But it's a huge amount of this goes on to the regime and the planning. That being said, it puts you in the position to overspend for free agents. That's what happens when you screw up. Now, they overpaid John Runyon, but John Runyon is an average lineman. They didn't overpay Jermaine Illuminor, but they didn't really what they got. That was like sort of an accident that he's like their best free agent.
They didn't even plan to have him play tackle.
And having to overspend for Hudson is just something that happens when there's no depth because you didn't prioritize drafting it. That in that time, some of the guys didn't pan out. I mean, it's just a situation. It's the hole you dig. You do have to dig yourself out, and it does take time. Do they deserve that time is a completely different argument. I'm not saying that, but I do think it's the reality is that mistakes were made, and it was a variety of mistakes. It just puts you so far behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, I just keep coming back to the last 3 years. They've drafted 2, and their biggest contract was $10 million per year. Like that.
They drafted 2 in the last 3 years.
That's what I'm saying. They've drafted 2 in the last 3 years.
They acquired 5.
Who are the other 3?
Jermaine Illuminor, John Runyon, and James Hudson.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like, but I'm saying the biggest contract you've given out is $10 million per year, and then you had a 2nd round pick and a 5th round pick in the last 3 years. Like to me, that is not. Even if though, like that's just not trying to get offensive line as an advantage. Like they look at it as like let's make this. Hopefully, we can make this serviceable.
Agreed, but I mean, at the same time, like the reason I say they acquired 5 is because it's relevant because it's not like you can go out there and buy 4 offensive linemen and also draft 3 offensive linemen. I mean, you could, but I mean, the Giants roster wasn't really in a position for you to have the luxury to just spend all of your assets in one position group. And that's the situation that they are to blame for. You know what I mean? Again, this is not an excuse, but
back-to-back years on free agency previews where we're talking about like, all right, what's the big money position? Guard, and they've come.
Oh, I got news for you. We're going to be talking about it next offseason too.
Yeah. And they just haven't been willing to do that, and then again, like, you could have drafted offensive linemen. If even taking more swings than on day 3 or whatever. Not to say that would fix it. And at the end of the day, results have been the worst part because if Evan Neal works out, if Josh Azudu works out, if JMS works out, and whatever, it's a good offensive line, but they didn't. I want to be a little bit of a beacon of hope though for the offensive line going forward. With Andrew Thomas, I don't think they're going to be pitiful as pass blockers. I think James Hudson was by far the worst pass blocker on Sunday. Like by far the worst. JMS was really bad, but also not other teams aren't going to put JMS in one-on-one spots as much as the Commanders are going to. John Runyon, I think, struggled because he was playing next to James Hudson, and I don't just say that because people just will say that. Like, James Hudson is terrible at identifying a stunt, and that hurts the guard. And then he gets the bump of playing next to Thomas, which helps him a little more than what it does. And then Illuminor was good in pass protection. Van Roten had a couple bad plays, but he certainly wasn't like this terrible issue. The run game is a totally different story.
That's a problem.
That's where it is a problem, and I don't see it getting much better because that was a worry before the season, and it certainly is one after week 1. But pass protection-wise, I think with Andrew Thomas, we won't be having you won't hear the same tune as it was about Sunday's game. And Russell Wilson, I mean, they gave up 2 sacks. One of them was clearly Russell Wilson's fault on that. But
Well, that's sort of bringing us into question 4 here from at Greg J15 Jeff G. Is the O-line really this bad, or is Wilson folding under any semblance of pressure? Take it away.
wow, that was a great transition.
Way to go, Bobby.
No, that was you. That was a great transition by you. And I forgot to even had the O-line part in that question. With Russ, man, the deep ball was so inaccurate. Like, and if he was just hitting his deep ball, I think we have that's what I was hoping to get out of Russ this year. And maybe he does, like, you keep him clean and he makes the pocket. But I will say, as much as like their game plan was frustrating, Russ bails from pockets. Like, it's frustrating, dude, where it's like, just throw the ball. Why are you or hang in there for a little bit? Like, I'm talking about like third and 10, and it's like, why are you not checking the backside dig? Why are you so eager to check this down? The clip that went around of Darius Slayton running deep down the field. Why are you bailing from a clean pocket to check down on 3rd and long? Why are you like, I don't understand why you're doing that. Quick game stuff where, again, I hate the way that they overuse Wandale, despite the fact that he had a really good drive. But like, it's like, why are we trying to force this? Like, teams see this shit, and you got to be bang bang to make it work. And Russ is just not with that. So this is where I think Daboll's going to go to Dart sooner. And by the way, we're not doing the Dart Russ thing. I told you guys I'm not doing that on a week 1 mailbag. But here's where it is. I don't think it's just Daboll's going to be like, Russ sucks, I got to make a move. Daboll's going to be like, I want to use the middle of the field, and this dude is not letting me do it and is limiting everything that I can do.
I think that Russell Wilson had his predictable amount of moments of making the pocket worse than it was. This is something that we knew about with Russell Wilson going into this season, that he has tendencies of just giving up on stuff or running. Like this was a talking about. How many times did we even talk about like, oh, he's going to take some sacks, man? I don't think that it was more than I expected. I just think that we said this after the game too. The good you expected from Russell Wilson wasn't there to outweigh the predictable bad. So to answer the question flat out, like, is the O-line really this bad, or was Wilson folding? Wilson was folding the amount that I expected. I mean, he did stand in there and take shots to the chops and still try and deliver. And that's all still sort of there, but he absolutely bailed from pockets. He absolutely ran into at least 1 sack. I think actually 2. He gives up on stuff when it starts to fall apart, and immediately looks to his check down at minimum, and at worst, will try to scramble or just get sacked and run into stuff. But I don't think it was more than I expected. But on top of it, the O-line did not play well. So I mean, it is a combo of both, I think.
Yeah. But there was a good, like you said, it's when the deep ball's not hitting, it's like all this other stuff that you knew was part of the wrestling just becomes more frustrating, because like, oh, you're not even doing the one thing that you were supposed to be good at. Where if he hit some of those deep passes, we're talking about this in a whole different light, even though it's like the same bad plays. But it is frustrating when it's like, dude, why are you leaving this pocket? Why are you not even looking at this? Why are you looking down at the rush and quick game? Why are you doing those things? Why are you literally doing a spin move in the pocket on a ball that should be out in less than 2 seconds? Like, and it's like, what, you're not that athletic guy anymore. Why are you looking to rush on this? Like this feels like your first option is like, hopefully the rush lane is open and I'm going to run up through it, and then you're not able to make that play. So he certainly wasn't good. There was, again, some good plays that could have happened that were taken off the board, most specifically by James Hudson. There wasn't the other 4 guys, even though JMS was bad, I don't think their bad plays were like, ruin this play. James Hudson did, where there's like, man, he probably took 50+ yards off the field himself.
But I also think James Hudson played as predictably bad as I would have thought.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he played worse than I thought he would. I just, you can bet that when you have your backup left tackle playing, you're going to get just about that many bad plays.
Oh yeah, I think there's worse football in James Hudson. Luckily we're playing.
Yes.
Luckily we're playing the Cowboys, who have a bad edge group. But I'm like, dude, this is the Commanders' defensive ends. Like, what happens when we play like real guys? Even JMS, like he was bad. Like,
He got walked into Russ's lap at least once.
yeah, like, and there was I did a whole segment on him on the O-line report where I'm like, oh god, Chris Jones, like this is not gonna be good. Kenny Clark next week, this is gonna be brutal. Um, so, all right, next question.
Next question comes from at NYG Tim, and he says, do you think Neighbors didn't shake Daboll's hand because he was dehydrated? If so, is there a hydration drink for him to take to avoid this from happening again? And I think that there is, and I hope that it's on the sidelines. And that would be Body Armor, because this mailbag episode is brought to you by Body Armor Sports Drink. Rewrite your routine and choose better with Body Armor. Body Armor is real hydration with electrolytes, coconut water, and no artificial dyes, flavors, or sweeteners, with great tasting flavors like strawberry banana and orange mango. Body Armor will level up your hydration game, and you'll be able to dap up your head coach. Grab Body Armor Sports Drink from your local grocery store. Body Armor, choose better. You'll be glad you did.
You said hopefully it's on the side. It's actually, I won't say like into specifics, but maybe we know why the Giants have been so bad.
Yeah, I mean, hey,
I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Thank you, Body Armor. You'll be glad you did. All right, next question.
the next one comes from Moneymaker Mike. Is this run defense projecting to be Dexter Lawrence or bust? And should they sign anyone at defensive tackle?
I'll be honest, I forgot to look at the defensive tackles available. So I'm just going to say no, because there's no one available. So after week 1, I lied. I said they'd be dead last in rushing. Only the Bills are worse. So they're 31st in total rushing and 31st in yards per carry after week 1. And here's the thing is, Dexter Lawrence, expect higher than him. Dexter Lawrence didn't play bad on Sunday. In fact, he was still their best defender, I think. I know Abdul Carter had some more splash plays and Brian Burns had 2 sacks. I actually think Dexter Lawrence was better. There was still their best player, but he wasn't dominant. But the issue is just the same issues with this Shane Bowen run defense, and it's personnel too. It's not just Shane Bowen, but like Roy Robertson Harris was terrible. The DBs like almost exclusively fit the run incorrectly. Bobby Okereke was very timid, and then you take Micah McFadden out, and I think that made a big difference where Darius Mosa was just slow. And it won't be that bad every week. Like the Commanders and the Eagles, like the Commanders are a top 3 rushing offense, and the Eagles are number 1. Like those are going to be terrible opponents for the Giants, and I expect them to be like bottom 3 in rushing defense this year. But like next week against the Cowboys, it can't be that bad. If they give up 150 yards on the ground against Dallas, though, then we're talking about like this pass rush is not gonna matter because of it. But the reality is this run game, like the question says, it is Dexter bust plus Burns, Carter, and Kayvon creating tackles for a loss and not playing a quarterback like Jaden Daniels that just eliminates negative plays.
Yeah, I mean, I think to answer the question if they should sign anyone at defensive tackle, the answer is no. And there's 2 reasons for that. Number one, I think that they had like a bunch of different options at defensive tackle that all played about what to the level that what you're going to get on the open market right now. So it's not like there's nobody on the practice squad or like you're not going to get much better than DJ Davidson out there on the open market anyway. So signing somebody is not really going to help anything at this point. That ship has sailed and probably sunk. So that is what it is. And I would say, and I if you're ready, we can move this into the next question. But
I'm looking at interior defensive linemen that are available.
Okay. I mean, they don't have a ton of money either. They have like, I think like $3 million in space.
Oh, Christian Wilkins.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen. He's injured.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, maybe Linval.
Yeah. How old is Linval Joseph now? He's got to be like 35.
He's old, dude. He's now 35. He's going to be 37 in a month or whatever.
Dang.
Dude, bring him back.
I mean, he honestly would probably be an upgrade over some guys here.
He keeps getting signed every single year, so
it's amazing. Jonathan Hankins is still out there kicking around too. All these former Giants 2nd-round picks.
Hankins is still kicking around?
I thought so.
I thought that ended like I'm gonna look it up.
Maybe it ended like last year then.
Let's see.
Let's see how much.
No, he's on the Seahawks. I
Well,
think
those-
Linval was on the Seahawks at one point too.
I think so.
Hankins, how old is Hankins? He is.
He's
Oh God, he's really old. He's my age. He's 33.
my gosh.
So he's not as old as Linval.
Ready for next question.
Yeah. Next question.
This one comes from H Larios 29. Hilarious. With Micah McFadden out for some time, do you think Shane Bowen will play some snaps for Carter at inside linebacker? He unexpectedly played some special team snaps.
So Mike Garafolo reported McFadden will be out for a significant part of the season with a foot injury, and then Jordan Renan reports he's having surgery as well. So hopefully he's back. I want to kick this to you because
Okay.
like what do you think about the and this just isn't just an Abdul Carter question, but like just how do you address linebacker too?
So my answer is that little bit of cap space they have should probably be spent signing somebody there because Chris Board is a special teams guy, and I think that they're gonna try some shit with Abdul Carter. I think they're gonna try some shit with Chris Board, but they're gonna find out pretty quickly that that's just not a long-term solution. The linebacker group was not a deep or big one to begin with. Maybe they dip back into the Deontay Johnson well, but I don't think so. I think that possibly because you know for a fact McFadden is out for a long time. When it comes to the defensive tackle position, you're just like, oh, they had a bad game, or Dexter Lawrence was having a kid that weekend. Maybe his head wasn't 100% in the game for that week. He's also coming off a dislocated elbow. He didn't really get the full ramp up. You can make excuses and know that like you still have an all-star at the defensive tackle position. The linebacker group was weak to begin with, and it was only as deep as the starters, and you've already lost one for, quote, a significant amount of time, which may mean the entire season. So I think that there's a chance that you maybe try and pry Eric Kendricks back into the game, or maybe there's somebody like Quan Alexander that you want, or Jalen Reeves-Maben, somebody that you can sign out there. Those guys are all available. Nick Vigil, who's terrible, but these guys are guys that play linebacker. You need something else there because with the defensive tackle spot, it's not like you have to replace a roster spot. They just didn't play the way you wanted. The linebacker spot, your backup guy, like what happens if you have another injury? I mean, let's just start right there off the top. Like you are now at the point of Chris Board and Darius Muasau, or Chris Board and Bobby Okereke are all you have, and you've got nothing else going on. So I think that they should sign somebody at linebacker, hopefully.
I'm gonna say Jawan Bentley. He's not injured.
Okay.
Is he?
Yep. I don't think so, but I know he's available. Josie Jewell, I think, is in. I think he's not going to play because he had like concussion problems, like repeat concussion problems or something like that.
What do you think about the Abdul Carter? Like, would you put Abdul Carter there?
I think that they'll try to, but again, like I think that they'll mess around with some of that, and it'll probably sustain in some way, shape, or form throughout the rest of the year. But let me ask you this: do you want to take your number 3 overall pick and change his development for the sake of success, winning games this year?
So I'm glad you said that because that's why I took it to you first, because like I don't want to put, like you said, mess around with it a little bit, a few plays here and there, but actually just playing the position. Like I think Carter's a top 5 player in the team already. I don't want him moving his position because the Giants have no depth at inside linebacker.
Yeah, but I mean, I do think that they'll mess around with some of it, though.
Yeah, and they've already done that. Like, but at the end of the day, like he's in there to move forward and rush the passer.
Well, and also like I don't know how much to read into this because it has only been one game, but Brian Daboll referenced multiple times like the snap count and Abdul Carter playing snaps on special teams, which he was actually effective at. Like I'm in favor of, if you're going to give some snaps, like why the hell not? Some of the Giants' best years, you had starters playing special teams like Corey Webster and shit like that. So I don't have a problem with Abdul Carter getting special team snaps, but you already have absolute proof that he is, effective in that role, are you going to now double up his snap counts, or are you going to take him away from that just to play a position that he doesn't play? It doesn't make any sense to me. And again, what are we trying to salvage here? A 6-win season? What was the projection here anyway?
I'm
So
not even saying that. I just think taking him away from the position he's meant to play is I'm not doing that. Like I'm not.
I'm not a fan.
I will say watch out for Zaire Barnes from the practice squad. Jets 6th-round pick in 2023. Undersized linebacker, but he plays with speed and lateral quickness. Shout out Micah McFadden. Works as a gap shooter when getting preseason run early. Spent last year in the IR. He might be the guy who can challenge to actually play linebacker at some point, was my notes when I did my practice squad rankings. I played DB at Western Michigan before converting to linebacker. He is I've updated my new thing is the Giants Nation Show practice squad power ranking system, and he is now number 3 on that, only behind Amir Smith-Marset and Elijah Garcia. So he was already 5. But he jumped Lil Jordan Humphrey and the other linebacker Swayze Bozeman, who's more like a special teams guy. But I don't want Abdul Carter. I don't want that being the option, and it's not even. And it's like It's not, I don't want to ruin his development to get. No, I just think I think he's just gonna help winning more at that position, and it's their fault that they did inside linebacker depth. Don't mess with what he does best. Simple as that.
I agree. Next question comes from Tim Coffey. It says, when is this coaching staff going to realize that Daniel Bellinger is actually a good option to catch the football? All I ever hear is anyone say that he's just average, yet I've never seen him drop a target. He legit deserves more targets.
I think this is going to be my most unpopular answer, is that I'm still sticking with Theo for now. And first of all, I just don't like the idea of like, this guy had 2 drops. Time to give up on him. Like, I just don't do with that. But like, I'll say this: some of the arguments for starting Daniel Bellinger are not bad ones. Like, I've wrestled with this one quite a bit, but I do want to talk about this. Like, I want to reference this Nick Filato tweet, and this obviously drops are a way to fall out of favor with the fan base. But Nick Filato said Daniel Bellinger has a 90% catch rate through his career, with 9.4 yards per reception and 2 drops. Theo Johnson has a 65% catch rate, with 11.2 yards per reception with 7 drops. And Theo's drops they drive me nuts, even though they wouldn't have contributed to anything positive if he caught those 2 passes on Sunday. And Bellinger Bellinger does have better hands, but at the end of the day, part of the reason why Bellinger's catch rate is high, and I'm not talking about like dropping the ball when I say catch rate, I mean like receptions per target. We talk about he doesn't get targeted down the field. Like, in his career, he has 11 targets, 10 plus yards down the field, and not 0 catches, 0 targets of 20 plus yards. Theo just in only 1 year in which he missed time, he had 16 targets of 10 plus or more yards, and then 3 over 20 yards, including 2 catches. And I do think Theo is better in line. Here's where, Bellinger's rookie year, I think, gets severely overrated because, one, the Giants won games, and he was a rookie starter. That is the formula for overrated player. It's like decent rookie season with a mid-round pick, and the team won games. Because like that rookie year, he was 37th out of 42 tight ends in yards. In yards per route run, he was 40th. In average depth of target, he was 40th. And that was a team that was begging for somebody to garner targets and garner yards. So I will say this. I'm not sticking with this opinion if things keep happening the way they did, because Theo needs to catch the ball and he needs to just have production, not just catch, passes that would have accumulated in 5 yards and punts. But where I will concede is get rid of Manhurst reps. Bellinger, in this run game that needs some type of identity, Bellinger as a move blocker helps this team way more than Chris Manhurst as an inline blocker. So I will say that. Start giving Bellinger 30 to 50% of the snaps, and not the last year where he was getting 15, 20%.
I'm going to slightly agree with Mr. Coffee, and not just because he proposed to me on the sombrero.
That did happen.
I think that Bellinger and Theo Johnson are different players, though, and I think that Brian Daboll prioritizes the kinds of things that Theo Johnson does that Daniel Bellinger just doesn't. Daniel Bellinger doesn't stretch the field. You're right. And I think that there's the ceiling for Bellinger has already been reached. That's pretty what he has become is what he will be. But I don't think that that's a bad player or somebody that should be deprioritized. I think there are other issues with the offense that force them to deprioritize what Daniel Bellinger does. Daniel Bellinger is a chain mover. Daniel Bellinger is the tight end that pisses off Giants fans because when those kind of guys play against us, they're always like on 3rd and 4, they're getting 5 yards and we just can't stop it. And it just happens an entire drive down the field. Like Jason Witten was basically running down the field with a walker and still getting open and moving the chains for the Dallas Cowboys against the Giants. I think that Daniel Bellinger is the same kind of guy, but this offense has been so putrid since 2022 that sort of niche role in the offense just is not a priority for Brian Daboll right now. He needs his offense to get in rhythm first. They need to be moving down the field first. I think if this offense ever gets to the point of having Daniel Bellinger on the roster, 1, and 2, being in a consistent rhythm where like the underneath stuff is really opening up, where he thrives in there, making the tough catches, the contested catches, not dropping shit, and, just kind of rumbling and bumbling for the next couple of yards. And I'm not trying to diminish him like he's just some slow moving asshole out there, but that's where he's best is just kind of bouncing off guys, being the tough guy and making the hard catches. I think that role in Brian Daboll's offense only happens when stuff is opened up. And we haven't seen this offense function in a way that is opened up since 2022 when they were forced to play Daniel Bellinger. So I sort of agree with Mr. Coffee. I also think that there's a reason why he's being devalued right now. And he may not even be on the team at the point where the offense functions well enough for him to thrive.
Yeah, I expect more out of Theo, and if he doesn't start doing more, then I will switch to the Bellinger should start side because at least I know what I have in him, and it's not.
But I do think that they're different, right? Like
they're. I mean, again, you're not Theo Johnson. You can target down the field, and I think you can actually put him in like actual not like make a tough grab in space, but actually make contested grabs. There was a couple times in the red zone where I'm like, dude, Theo's got a step, throw it to him for his biggest shit. Like, let him make a play. And his best play of the game was taken off the board because of a penalty where, he's up the seam and Russ goes behind and they adjust to it. And so they're both so Theo's dependent on the quarterback to be his best, but he also needs to catch the damn ball. Where Bellinger, I know what I'm getting. It's not a lot, but at least it's steady, and I'll never be frustrated with Bellinger as a player. Well, I'll just be like, this is not very high ceiling, where Theo can leave you frustrated. So I'm not going to give up on that after one game. But if you have a continued trend of what last week is, then I'll left hand up. I'll say I was wrong and switch over to Bellinger.
We are at 53 minutes.
Skip this question, do the last one.
You got it. Sorry, pal. Last question.
It's a question we'll hit eventually. It's just not a week 1 pressing question.
Yeah, we agreed on that beforehand. Final question comes from Mr. @Dominic Pizzi, Mr. Pizzi, Dom Pizzi. Can Bobby Skinner and Football Grump predict which week it'll be for us to see the first banner plane fly over MetLife this year?
Well, I can predict when one will come, but I'm not going to say because mine's going to be because remember the 24-hour stream, I do have to do a plane, but it's a positive plane. And I'm trying to think of new captions and something I thought being like, this is only positive because I promise listen to Giants Nation show if that fits on it. But I'm not going to say
it might be 2 planes.
I don't, or just like, hey, it's a positive plane. Listen to Giants Nation. Here's the thing. I will say this. Leave the negative planes in the past. That was a last year thing. It was not effective, but it was like, hey, remember this happened 40 years ago? It happened again. If we're just doing this every game and every year, then they just don't mean anything.
I'm so glad you said that.
We have to keep the negative planes in our back pocket for 30 years from now. Like they need to stay in our back pocket for 30 years from now. If we just do it every single week and every single game, every single year.
You're just cheapening it. Like it has its effect only because it hasn't been like that's the whole story. It's like, oh my God, this is happening again. We're really down in the dumps. You do it every year, and it's like, are we down in the dumps, or is this just something we do when we're dissatisfied?
Yeah, it's just people kind of doing stuff. Like, example, my positive plane is simply just it's funny. Like, it's not actually. I'm not actually trying to send a message. It's just funny. But that's why I'm not going to do. People still want me to do a negative plane, and I will never do a negative plane. So I'll even say this: if there's a plane, like I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna say like this is dumb. Like this is not accomplishing anything anymore. Like it's just gotten old. So no negative planes. Call and cancel them if you've been doing them. And I just most of the plane people listen to this show. So no more planes. All right. And anything else?
No, that was it. We skipped the other questions. That's that.
All right, we skipped it. You guys will never know what it is.
Not gonna happen now.
Even though we will answer it at some point. All right, we will see you guys Friday for a Cowboys preview. And guess what? We're going to beat the Cowboys, damn it. I hope so. We will see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.